Wife got drunk and abusive towards me at a wedding and I don't know what to do. Okay, here we go. We started drinking around 2:30 for happy hour, had a couple at the beach before 2, had the wedding ceremony at 4, then more drinks for an hour and then dinner. Meal was going great until about 20 minutes in. I noticed she started getting very quiet. She said a couple pretty argumentative things, especially when we started talking about gender fluidity, hardly ate anything and was fairly unresponsive to anything I was saying. I tried to engage her multiple times, but she acted like she didn't hear me, and started loudly talking about Bender and how terrible he was in college. A friend noticed and tried to change the subject. It started feeling tense, but wife kept charging along. She then got up and served the veggie tray that just had arrived at our table to multiple other tables around. Her speech was also slightly slurred. Just then a bowl of collard greens arrived at the table. I know she loves collard greens, and I don't, so I never order them, but I said OMG. You could have a whole bowl of collard greens to yourself. She snapped back something to the effect of no, actually you are the only one who doesn't like collard greens, and there are other people at the table who like them, so I obviously can't eat the whole bowl, and they're actually a menu item. I didn't really know what to say, but she abruptly got up, glared at me and said, "You're being annoying." I followed her, and she took me to the hallway and started berating me about how I made this stupid joke, and obviously she couldn't eat the whole bowl and there were other people at the table who liked them, so obviously she couldn't eat the whole bowl, and what a stupid joke I made. Multiple times I tried to explain I wasn't even making a joke, just excited that she had unlimited collard greens, and was happy for her since I knew she loves them. Over and over she berated me about the same thing, eventually yelling at me to the point of me trying to say keep your voice down and her moving us outside. She then repeated herself over and over again. I didn't know what to say, and was feeling attacked, belittled, judged. She made me feel like an idiot and so small. She was also slurring, swaying, and exhibiting all of the signs of her angry drunkenness. She stops listening to me, mocks me, swears at me, tells me to shut up, I hate you, etc. She also will ask me a question, and while I'm trying to answer, will interrupt me, and then change the goalposts or completely ignore me. We got into a similar fight at my company holiday party. Afterwards, we mutually agreed to let the other one say something if the other person was too far gone or too inebriated. I was very hesitant to do so, but after she prodded me, I said I don't want to say anything because I know it will make you furious. But she didn't care, so I said I'm seeing signs that I've seen before and it feels like you are drunk and angry towards me. She doubled down, got more upset, more accusatory, completely denied ever making that deal with me, told me it was all my fault for saying something about the collard greens in the first place and how I dragged her outside and picked a fight with her and was being mean to her, etc. We went back and forth. I apologized many times for making her self-conscious about her eating or her habits. That was absolutely not even on my mind. But she then roller coastered between swearing at me, starting to apologize for making me feel bad, then started crying and saying how could I do this to her, and then screaming at me for accusing her of being a drunk even though she'd only had 2 glasses of wine. Eventually she left and said she'd be in the room and the only way I could come back is with an apology. I went and sat in the yard for a while, came back to the room. First thing I said was I'm so sorry for making you feel bad about your eating habits, or. Then I eventually came back. She'd calmed down and said let's just go hang out with our friends separately. So we did, then I went to bed. She came back after having gone and smoked a bunch of weed, and had the spins, so she went and threw up, and was relatively happy. We had to travel all day yesterday, so didn't really talk about it, but this morning, after randomly snapping at me because I didn't say goodbye to her parents correctly, they were watching baby all weekend, she told me she's still so mad at me for making her feel so bad about being drunk. So I need advice on how to talk to her about her behavior and disrespect. Has anyone been in a similar situation and found a way forward? Comment. She's out of control. When she is sober, if you can tell, I would lay on the line that this was not acceptable. This was not getting drunk at a wedding, which she was and needs to hear, even if it sends her flying off the handle. This was alcohol-fueled abuse plus shame rage that went on for days. Being drunk doesn't make being abusive okay. Getting more wasted because you're embarrassed is not okay. Maybe she won't acknowledge that she's wrong, but you've got to pull back on the apologies. Start making more of a plan for you and your child because she is unreliable. When she is sober, ask if she wants help managing her intake and the anger it manifests, Because it's just not the way to be with a partner, or anybody. Don't stay in this. She's gotta get real with herself, or you have to get real about whether you can live like this. You shouldn't. One thing I notice you mention is recognizing the signs of her angry drunkenness. Is she usually like this when drinking? I think, in this situation, I would probably go hash things out with a divorce lawyer, personally. My spouse behaving like this would cross too many boundaries. If you want to stay, I think you have to have a really open conversation about the impact alcohol has on her behavior and see whether or not she's at all receptive to that. To me, it doesn't sound like she in a sober state is going to be receptive to that conversation, which is part of why, in your shoes, I would go to the extreme and end my marriage. If you decide to do anything such as go to couples therapy, you need to disclose the abusive behavior to the therapist so that they can determine whether or not they want to work with you. A lot won't if there's any form of abusive pattern there, as it can make things worse. Tell her what happened and don't sugarcoat it. Tell her how it made you feel. Tell her how it makes you feel. Tell her that you don't want to see it happen again. It's okay to be angry when someone acts this way. You can still love them and be disappointed in their behavior. It's okay to let them know that. Also, someone who get belligerent, drunk at your company Christmas party and at someone else's wedding may very well have an issue with alcohol. This is the time to start talking about, not avoiding it, talking about it. She sounds like she's a bad drunk and really doesn't know how to take accountability for herself or her actions. Don't get me wrong, my partner and I both like a drink, so I see nothing wrong with letting loose and having a drink, especially at a wedding. But, there is an amount of self-respect and self-responsibility that needs to be taken into account when drinking. She clearly lacks that. I suspect this will happen again. I also suspect that she will continue to push/break this boundary. If you were checking in with her and telling her she may have had too much, as long as you weren't aggressive, then that's caring for her. If she takes that as an attack, she has some real issues. I get that taking accountability when you're in the wrong sucks, but you're supposed to be her husband and you're the father of her child, not just a random. But her actions were a bit of a slap on the face, and you apologized. To top it off, she's still mad. That seems ungrateful to me. She told you to leave, kicked you out of your bed, mocked your apology and your feelings, and is now holding a grudge. Does that sound okay to you? I have no advice except maybe steer clear of her drunk, or just film/record her and see if she finally sees how abusive she was when drunk. Any advice I have should be common sense for a 33-year-old woman. It's just called accountability and sensibility. You can't teach someone that, they have to learn that themselves. Next story 2. How do I tactfully decline a very nice anniversary gift from my wife? I realize in writing this post that this is going to come across like the most first world of all problems, but I'm feeling pretty stressed about this and would truly appreciate some non-judgmental advice. My wife bought me an insanely nice fountain pen from Mont Blanc for our 10-year anniversary. I mentioned offhand recently that I might try journaling again, and she thought a timeless pen and a nice journal would be a great way to support that goal. As much as I appreciate the lovely gesture, a $2,000 pen is not really something I want or think I would use. And to be honest, more than anything I feel burdened by having such a nice thing that I will have to keep in a safe place, maintain, etc. I know this was an expression of generosity and love to go over the top to get something luxurious and frivolous that I'm way too practical to get myself. Her perspective, which I generally agree with, is that the best gifts are things that the other person would appreciate but never get themselves. Unfortunately, I think I've already failed at looking overjoyed to have received this. I was very grateful for the gesture but expressed my qualms about whether I would actually use this. She said we can exchange it if I really want to, but from the way she was pitching this to me I can also tell she really wants me to keep it. As much as I like some nice things, I just don't think I'm the sort of person who values a luxury pen. But at the same time, I know the symbolism is important to her, so she wanted to get something that would last. I also recognize that, to some extent, gift giving in occasions like this is as much about the giver as it is the receiver. What would be the best way to insist on returning this without making her feel? Or should I not make this about me and just graciously accept it? For context, we're comfortable white-collar workers in middle age, but gifts of this magnitude is not a regular thing for us. I don't own any designer clothing. I've flown business class just once in my life, and I am still delighted when I pull up to a parking meter and find there's still 40 minutes left. We both work and have similar incomes, So we also treat most of our finances separately so that we can each buy stuff we want, within reason, without having to get permission, while each contributing 50% to stuff we share like rent, travel, groceries, eating out, etc. So this is not about me being concerned about how she's spending our money per se. Comment. Probably an unpopular opinion, but, if your finances can truly afford a $2,000 pen, and you can't think of anything you'd rather have, I would just keep the pen, and here's the main part I would use it. I would use that $2,000 pen to journal, to write grocery lists, fill out my planner, take notes during meetings, etc. I would use that $2,000 pen like it was a $5 disposable Bic, like it was the most natural thing in the world to be using a luxury pen to write out Christmas cards. I kind of think you are overthinking this. Your wife made a grand gesture, and while the gift is over the top, it's still practical. It is something you can use, and it's an heirloom piece. Long story, but as someone who does not value material things like this, let me tell you a quick story. My dad, wonderful man, grew up on the Mill Hill in the South. No indoor plumbing until he was in HS. 4 children sharing bath water. Turning the porch into a makeshift bedroom. You get it? He made it out. Worked hard, climbed the white-collar ladder. At one point, he was gifted a Mont Blanc pen. By his workplace, immediately, while he was grateful. He couldn't fathom such spending on a thing like that. But he used it. And while on his desk one day at home, my brother, 4 at the time, got his hands on it and chewed LOL. My dad to this day has that pen. My brother's bite marks in the gold, dented. He absolutely treasures it. While it's a magnificent pen, the real value came from it telling a story. My point is, take the gift. She wanted to give you something nice that she thought you'd value. While I admire you aren't materialistic, just treasure it. You may find another reason for treasuring it later. Learn to appreciate it. JFC, it was a grand gesture for a milestone anniversary. Be gracious and grateful and say thank you. Do you never use pens? Try being more sentimental and loving and use it to write love notes, cards, and letters to your wife. Make her feel good about her thoughtful gift instead of shooting it down. It isn't like she bought you a gift that she really wanted for herself. You're not the asshole and you're in a no-win situation. You're going to hurt her feelings if you return or exchange it, so just put it somewhere you know it won't get lost and tell her how much you appreciate her and it. I've been there, and this is the only way to keep from being reminded of it every anniversary, birthday, or Christmas, because she can never buy you anything you like. This happened to me, with an albeit far less expensive gift, $500. He generally loved the thought but kindly asked to return it, as in the end, though it was cool and a collector type item, it was not his desire to have. It sucked, but after some thought, it made sense, and I don't resent him for wanting to return it. I wanted him to enjoy the gift, not resent it. So I returned it and took him to his favorite city for a weekend getaway which we loved. Use it. Please keep it. If the $2,000 is truly not an issue, just accept it and use it. As an aside, my dad gave his parents Mont Blanc pens in the 90s and one was passed to me when they died. I love the gift and story behind it. They weren't the type for luxury things either, but it was special that they kept them. Perhaps others might not agree, but you might consider just keeping the pen, especially if you can financially afford it. The cost of the pen, if it's tiny in your household budget, might not be worth hurting your wife's feelings after the fact. At some point, have a conversation with your wife about what you do like. This year, if you are looking to surprise me with something, I would really like a vacation somewhere. Or an experience. Or whatever. My GF and I had a conversation about this kind of stuff very early in our relationship. She doesn't want expensive kitsch, check, and absolutely would not like me to surprise her with a vacation somewhere. She enjoys researching and planning as much as the trip. I totally understand, but as a woman, it kinda sounds like she bought you something she wants you to want, as opposed to something you actually do want. I'm sure her heart is in the right place, but what's the point if you aren't going to use it? Several years ago, I bought my ex a pair of $185 designer jeans as a gift. The problem? He's just not a designer jeans guy. Sure, it dinged my feelings that he wanted to return them, but I'm an adult, and I got over it because the gift wasn't appropriate for him. My suggestion is to come up with alternatives before broaching the subject. Tell her you really appreciate the thought, but perhaps you could find something else you'd like and use at Mont Blanc. A wallet or sunglasses, perhaps.